147 years of power. How the Templars built a kingdom under the church. Imagine an order of warrior monks, dressed in white mantles with a crimson cross. They swore vows of poverty, yet controlled fortunes that could bankroll empires. For 147 years, the Knights Templar were more than just soldiers of the cross. They were the architects of an invisible kingdom, a state within a state answering only to the Pope. From their humble beginnings as 9 knights protecting pilgrims, they rose to become the most powerful institution of the Middle Ages. With the Pope's blessing, they were free from the authority of kings and bishops. They built fortress banks safer than royal castles, pioneering a credit system that was the blueprint for modern banking. While kings waged war, the Templars wove a web of finance and faith, their power growing silently in the shadows. But how did these pious warriors become so influential that even monarchs feared them? And what secrets did their power hold? This is the story of faith, finance, and the ultimate betrayal. In the year 1119, amidst the ashes of the First Crusades, a small group of knights stood before King Baldwin II of Jerusalem. They sought neither riches nor personal glory. Their purpose was higher: to protect Christian pilgrims who crossed dangerous deserts and roads infested with bandits on their way to the Holy Sepulchre. Led by Hugues de Payens, they took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, 3 oaths that bound them to the ideals of monastic life while embodying the valor of warriors serving the cross. Thus was born the Order of the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, a name that would soon thunder through history: the Knights Templar. In their early years, they were few and lived with almost nothing. They slept in stables, shared weapons, horses, even cloaks, and were regarded with suspicion by many nobles. But their faith was unbreakable. It was said that each Templar sword, before being drawn, was laid upon the altar and consecrated to the defense of God. This union of devotion and discipline became the foundation that would transform a humble brotherhood into one of the most powerful institutions of all time. Soon, their reputation for courage spread across Christendom, and what had begun as a handful of knights became the seed of a sacred and feared order. By 1129, with the support of the influential monk Bernard of Clairvaux, the most revered man in the church after the Pope, the Templars were officially recognized at the Council of Troyes. The church not only legitimized their existence, but placed them under its direct protection. It was the beginning of an alliance that would reshape the Middle Ages. The Templars were no longer mere soldiers. They were monk warriors blessed by the Pope, exempt from local laws and answerable only to Rome. This spiritual and political independence would become the fertile soil upon which their empire would grow. With papal backing, the order began receiving vast donations of land, gold, and estates across Europe. Each new castle became a strategic stronghold, each knight a vital piece in their expanding web of influence. While most religious orders remained confined within monastery walls, the Templars built fortresses, managed farms, controlled trade routes, and above all enforced a strict and unwavering code of conduct. To them, death in battle was not defeat. It was a direct ascension into eternity. What began as a holy vow to protect the weak and honor the faith would soon evolve into something far greater. Beneath the Crimson Cross, the Templars would carve a path that transcended devotion itself, shaping the politics, economy, and spiritual power of an entire era. Thus began the foundation of a kingdom that would endure for 147 years. When Pope Honorius II signed the papal bull that officially recognized the Order of the Templars, a new force was born within Christendom, one that did not belong to kings or nobles, but to men who swore allegiance only to God and the Holy See. It was more than a spiritual blessing. It was the opening of a path toward total autonomy. Under this divine authorization, the Templars received privileges no other institution of their time could claim. They could collect tithes, build their own churches, bury their dead in sacred ground, maintain independent armies, and, most importantly, answer only to the Pope. This decree freed them from the chains of feudal authority, allowing them to become a state within a state, a sacred body with earthly might. In a world where power was measured in land and swords, the Templars discovered a far greater domain: trust. The papal bull gave them legitimacy to act in God's name, and soon pilgrims, kings, and merchants began entrusting them with their treasures, jewels, and estates for safekeeping. The order created secure deposits, managed resources, and guaranteed the integrity of their clients' wealth, unknowingly giving birth to the first international banking system in history. It was the dawn of a network of wealth and influence that transcended borders and kingdoms. Their fortresses became more than strongholds of war. They were spiritual vaults, where faith and gold intertwined beneath the crimson cross. Each Templar castle represented a node of this invisible empire. From Portugal to the Holy Land, from Paris to Cyprus, the Templars built a structure so organized that not even the monarchs of their time could match it. Their communications were secret, their missions precise, their loyalty absolute. Within a few decades, the word Templar came to mean not just faith, but discipline, secrecy, and power. And the more the church protected them, the more the people revered them. To peasants, they were holy warriors, to nobles, indispensable allies, and to kings, dangerously useful partners. Templar gold financed crusades, maintained fortifications, and even ransomed prisoners. No Christian army marched without the presence of the Templar cross leading the way. Yet behind the lances and cloaks lay something unseen, a hidden hierarchy, an almost mechanical discipline, and an economy beyond anyone's control. The papal recognition did not only elevate them, it shielded them. No king could imprison them, no bishop could judge them, and no army could invade them without committing sacrilege. They had become untouchable. From that moment onward, the Order of the Knights Templar ceased to be merely a sacred army. It became a spiritual and financial power that would reign over Europe for nearly 150 years. With papal recognition and the prestige earned in the Crusades, the Knights Templar began to master something that would alter the course of Europe: the control of money. They understood that faith moved hearts, but gold moved empires. In an era when travel was perilous and robbery was common, the Templars created a network of trust, connecting East and West, turning castles into vaults and monasteries into financial centers. A pilgrim could deposit his wealth in Paris and withdraw the same amount in Jerusalem by presenting a document sealed with the Red Cross, the earliest form of a modern check. The system was so efficient that kings and merchants alike entrusted their fortunes entirely to the Templars. The order devised a method of accounting that seemed almost magical for its time. They kept detailed records, used secret codes, and developed a hierarchical structure ensuring the safety of every transaction. No coin changed hands without being logged. No agreement was sealed without the Templar insignia. Over time, the order's treasury surpassed that of many kingdoms, and its financial power became indispensable. Kings fell into debt to them, crusades were funded by their coffers, and the church watched with pride and unease as a sacred empire of wealth took shape. Templar gold did not merely sustain wars, it built cities, fed armies, and raised cathedrals. Their influence spread across every trade route in Europe and the Mediterranean. These knights, driven by faith, had become the bankers of Christendom. Ironically, their riches grew in direct proportion to the spiritual poverty of those around them. Yet they maintained an image of humility, simple clothing, modest meals, and bare floors. But their vaults held the destiny of nations. The Templar headquarters in Paris, known simply as the Temple, was the heart of this network. There, contracts were signed, secret deals forged, and royal treasures kept under vows of sanctity. Monarchs routinely stored portions of their wealth under Templar protection, for to steal from the order was to steal from God himself. That trust made them untouchable. Few realized that while crowns clashed on the battlefield, the Templars quietly accumulated influence, controlling the flow of gold across Christendom. In less than a century, the Knights Templar had built what the modern world would recognize as the first international banking system. But with economic power came political peril, for no king tolerates debt, especially to an order that acknowledges no borders. The same gold that had built their empire would one day forge the chains of their downfall. Topic 4. The sacred fortresses, the military power that held the empire. N. While gold strengthened the Templars' influence in Europe, the steel of their swords commanded respect and fear across the East. Every Templar fortress was more than a stronghold. It was a temple of faith, built with strategic precision, monastic discipline, and almost supernatural order. Located along key routes between the Mediterranean and Jerusalem, these castles formed an impenetrable defensive chain. Towers rose like fingers reaching to heaven, walls thick enough to resist catapults, and inner passages designed as mazes to trap invaders. They were sanctuaries of stone, where silence reigned, broken only by the chants of prayer and the sharpening of blades. The Templars were feared not only for their strength, but for the divine discipline with which they fought. Before every battle, they knelt before the cross, confessed their sins, and prayed for the grace to die fighting. Retreat was forbidden. The rule was clear. A Templar could not abandon the field unless the banner of the cross had fallen, and even then, many chose death over surrender. Their code of honor turned them into legends. Muslim chroniclers who faced them described them as lions in the form of men, and the most feared among the Christians. But the military power of the order extended beyond the battlefield. Each fortress served as a training ground, a headquarters, and a monastery of discipline. Young knights spent years in silence, mastering body and spirit under strict supervision. Their weapons were forged within the walls, their armor blessed before each crusade. Even their horses bore meaning. 2 knights on one steed, a symbol of humility and brotherhood, a reminder of their vow of poverty. Behind this structure lay a clear purpose: to create the most loyal and efficient army the Christian world had ever known. Over time, the Templars became the spearhead of the Crusades. Their formations were flawless, their attacks relentless. They marched in silence, guided only by the bells and their faith. When they advanced, it was as if a living wall of steel moved forward. This reputation earned them privileges, donations, and royal support. Yet it also isolated them, for no institution that unites faith, gold, and military power can remain unchallenged forever. Their fortresses, once built to protect the Christian world, became symbols of what the order itself had become: invincible, independent, and self-sufficient. The red cross fluttered over the stone gates like a divine warning. The Templars. Strength was not just spiritual, it was built on strategy, discipline, and control. The world began to realize the Knights Templar were no longer merely servants of God. They were the guardians of a worldly empire, one that existed beneath the shadow of heaven. As the years passed, the Order of the Knights Templar ceased to be merely a force of battle or a vault of faith. It had evolved into something far more complex, a sovereign power living within the very structure of the Church, yet operating with complete independence. Their spiritual authority came from the Pope, but their political and economic decisions required no one's approval. They governed territories, commanded armies, enforced laws, and managed vast wealth as if they were a nation of their own. Their castles, scattered across Europe and the East, formed a web of influence that even the Vatican could not fully control. And that, more than anything, both fascinated and terrified the rulers of their time. In many kingdoms, the Templar presence had become indispensable. Their castles offered protection, their currency was accepted everywhere, and their knights secured trade routes and peace along the roads. It was not uncommon for kings to seek counsel from Templar masters, recognizing in them a wisdom that surpassed their own royal advisors. And while crowns changed and empires fell, the order endured while untouched, fortified by faith and the papal decree that made them untouchable. This union of holiness and autonomy created something unprecedented: a church within the church, but with its heart beating to the rhythm of earthly power. The secret of Templar dominance lay in their perfect balance between spirituality and strategy. Their prayers were as sacred as their ledgers. In every priory, monks copied scriptures while managing farms, recording donations, and trading with merchants. Faith had found an economic form, and in that harmony of devotion and discipline, the Templars became the perfect fusion of heaven and earth. Yet what most intrigued and frightened us, their contemporaries, was their silence. The Templars spoke little and revealed less. Every decision was made behind closed walls, every ritual shrouded in secrecy. This veil of mystery fed rumors and inspired legends. Some believed they guarded sacred knowledge from the ruins of Solomon's temple. Others whispered that they practiced forbidden rites, that they had uncovered truths too dangerous for the church to acknowledge. The order never denied nor confirmed. Secrecy itself was their greatest defense. This combination of wealth, faith, and silence gave birth to something new, an invisible power that extended everywhere, yet bowed to no throne. In every gesture, the Templars showed loyalty only to God, but in the eyes of kings, that very loyalty became a threat. And soon their spiritual sovereignty would ignite the wrath of a monarch who could not tolerate sharing power with anyone. As the Templars' power grew stronger and more autonomous, Europe's monarchs began to see them not as allies, but as rivals. Among all the kings, none feared and despised them more than Philip IV of France, Philip the Fair. Intelligent, ambitious, and drowning in debt, he saw the Templars' immense wealth not only as a threat, but as the key to his own salvation. The gold of the warrior monks had financed his wars, supported crusades, and rescued his throne from bankruptcy time and again. But now, Philip wanted more than loans. He wanted control. And to achieve it, he would have to destroy the one power that would never bow to him. The king began weaving his web with precision and patience. He infiltrated spies within the order, spreading rumors of heresy and blasphemy. He accused the Templars of worshipping idols, spitting upon the cross, and denying Christ in dark rituals, lies designed to ignite the wrath of the Church and the fear of the people. Then he turned his pressure on Pope Clement V, a weak pontiff politically bound to France. The Pope hesitated, but Philip cornered him with threats and manipulation. The fate of the Knights Templar was sealed, not by swords, but by deceit. At dawn on Friday, October 13th, 1307, the king struck. Across France, Templar knights were arrested simultaneously in a sweeping operation that shook the foundations of Christendom. Many were tortured, forced to confess to crimes they never committed, and burned alive as heretics. The Temple of Paris, once the heart of the Templar Empire, became a dungeon of agony. And from that day, the date Friday the 13th would forever be marked by superstition and doom. Yet even under flames and torture, their loyalty never wavered. Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master, was burned at the stake. But before the fire consumed him, he raised his voice and cursed both his betrayers, the king and the Pope, summoning them to face divine judgment within a year. True to his words, both would die soon after, leaving the world to wonder if divine justice had spoken through the dying knight. The empire that took 147 years to build collapsed in a single night. But no fire could erase what the sword and the spirit had created. The castles fell, the gold vanished, yet the mystery endured. The world believed it had destroyed the Knights Templar, but in truth they merely vanished, absorbed into legend, surviving through symbols, whispers, and the eternal memory of their sacred brotherhood. The flames that consumed the Knights Templar in 1307 did not erase their story. They transformed it into eternity. For 147 years, they were more than warrior monks. They were empire builders, visionaries who merged faith with intelligence and discipline with devotion. Their fall was not an ending, but the birth of a legend that transcended time. Every stone of their fortresses, every cross upon their cloaks, every secret they carried became part of a mystery that would haunt history forever. The truth is simple. The order was destroyed, but its spirit never died. After the persecution, many knights vanished into exile, carrying with them not only treasure but knowledge. Some found refuge in Portugal, Scotland, and even the East, protected by kings still indebted to them. Historians believe that from these survivors, new secret brotherhoods emerged, preserving the ideals of the Templars under different names. Their influence can still be seen in architecture, law, diplomacy, and perhaps even in the foundations of modern Freemasonry. Wherever there is courage, loyalty, and mystery, the shadow of the Red Cross endures. The Templars' mark transcends time. They were the first to understand that true power does not rest solely on the sword, but on wisdom, faith, and discipline. They built bridges between nations, created systems of trust that connected the Christian world, and proved that spiritual devotion can coexist with worldly leadership. Their greatness lay in vision, in their belief that to serve God was to shape the destiny of mankind. And though their bodies were turned to ash, their legacy still burns as a flame that no darkness can extinguish. More than 7 centuries later, the name Knights Templar still commands awe and reverence. They stand at the border between the sacred and the human, between devotion and dominance. And that may be their greatest triumph, to have built an empire that time could not destroy. Because as long as there are those who seek truth, justice, and faith, the Templar spirit will live on. My friend, if this story has moved you, if it has reminded you that faith and courage can defy kings and centuries, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. Here, we revive the stories the world tried to bury, keeping alive the flame of those who dared to build a kingdom beneath heaven itself. The Templars may have fallen, but their light still guides the brave. My friend, if this story made you feel the power of faith and the courage of those who defied empires, don't let the flame fade. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you won't miss the next hidden stories of history. Share this video with someone who loves mysteries and seeks the truth behind legends. Together, we'll keep alive the memory of the Knights Templar, the warriors who turned faith into an empire and left behind a mystery that will never die.